Nice job. Was it fun? Did you enjoy playing? I think that's really, really important, you know? You notice that we say, I play the violin, not I work the violin, right? And that's one of the things that, to me, that's just so important, is that as you continue to study and practice the violin, that it stays fun. It's work, too, but probably work is best enjoyed when it's fun, too, don't you think? When it's more of a game. So, good for you. Really, really good. Let me just see from up here. See your violin position? Okay. I'm wondering what we can do. Your violin kind of wants to, it seems to respond very strongly to gravity. It wants to be this way a little bit, and I'm wondering what we would need to do. Whether we would just need to angle this a little bit differently or something. That's something you might experiment with your teacher. And I find that it's something that over the years that like what I use now is different from what I used to use. And that as you grow, you may need to do, not only will you change size of the violin, but what you use on the back of the violin or nothing at all. I have students who use no shoulder pad at all. They're comfortable with that. I use just a little something, this scroungy looking thing that actually I found inside an old violin case, and I said, wow, that just fits perfectly here. And it just fills in that space. But this is one thing I don't like to be really bossy about because I think it's very personal, you know, your relationship with the violin. And so some people will like a bigger pad, some people will like a little smaller pad. But I think if you could ask your teacher, what can I do? Is there anything I can do to adjust this pad so that it would make sure that it's doing its job of helping me hold the violin up rather than sagging this way, okay? All right. What do you know about this Mozart character that supposedly wrote this piece? Bingo. That's exactly right. Yeah. And he was a famous child performer, maybe more so on piano than violin, but he was a very good violinist too, actually. He played both instruments really, really well. And good. That's good that you know that about him. This particular concerto, not that we're going to try to turn you into a musicologist today, is actually probably not written by Mozart. It's written in the style of Mozart by somebody else named Casadasu. And you know, back in those times, it was seen as it was a tribute. If you decided to write something in the style of another composer and even put their name on it, it wasn't seen as plagiarism. It was seen as a tribute. Oh, I so admire the music of Mozart that I'm going to write something in his style. All right. You know, this is so great. How old are you, dear? 10. So it's great that at your age, you people are getting a chance to perform like this. Because I think that one of the things that's so hard is to make the transition from where we practice, and maybe you get to practice out in the living room at your house or something like that. You know, most of the kids here at the School of Music, they go to the practice rooms. It's a very, you know, necessary thing, but practice rooms are small. They're dry sounding usually, and it's sometimes hard to make the move from the practice room to the stage. So one thing I like to think in here, like, I don't know what you were thinking in terms of sending your sound, but I was sitting down here, but I actually really recommend to people to think up and out. So that might help with the posture thing actually too, you know? So if I was starting this piece, even though your adoring parents are right down here, I would actually not be your parents, and I would say, oh, I'm gonna think, let's see that little ventilation thing up there. And if I do that, the sound has this way of just making a kind of great big musical rainbow. It goes up and out, and everybody under it gets it too. Would you like to try the opening for me and see if you can aim for something up there? Think of yourself as a musical ventriloquist, and you're sending your sound out there. Nice. And play just a little more so you can get used to that. Could we invite you to join her? Actually, yeah. Just right on her entrance, if that's okay. Letter, number 2 or something? Yeah. on stage now. I was down there. I want to ask the people out there whether that made any difference. Did it seem like it projected more? Yeah. Good for you. Wow. I always start feeling a little bit, oh, wow, I better watch what I say when people actually do it, you know? You get used to students who kind of have this filter on themselves, and, you know, a certain amount comes in and a lot less comes out on the other side, but you're one of those good students that's actually doing what I'm recommending. And then I always have to be careful to not use too much hyperbole, to not exaggerate too much, because you're going to do it by now. Great, great. So this is maybe a little sophisticated, but I feel like you're a sophisticated player, and it would be okay to talk about this, think about this. And that is that, music, particularly music of this period, is in lots of ways composed much the same way that, like, a good story would be, in that it's kind of in musical sentences. And we call them phrases instead of sentences. But I think we are very lucky with the violin. We can make very long musical sentences because we don't have to stop and breathe like a singer does, like a woodwind player. And that's an advantage for us, but the thing that's easy to have happen also is to have the phrase have too many ups and downs. And for instance, I'm going to exaggerate. You by no means sound like what I'm about to right now. But we want to make sure the music sounds like it has one long direction. And it's easy for... Kind of sounds like the music's like I'm out on the front porch swinging or something, right? Which is kind of sweet, but it probably will get old after a little while, and we're going to find if I keep playing like that, the whole audience is going to be looking like they're at a tennis match or something, So what can we do with this? Let's see, I think you're doing a little different bowing too. Can I see the bowing you do so when I imitate, I do the same one as you? Right, so we've got long note. So maybe the key is that we don't use too much bow on the small notes. Makes it sound busy, right? So would you like to try that using a little less bow when you get to the small notes? And maybe particularly the last note. During this time period, the last part of a musical phrase usually was what we call phrased off, away. So it's more common in the other direction. So if you think, thank you, Michael. So I don't want... That would be like, maybe the best way to think of this is imagine if it were a sentence. There's lots of different ways that you could say it. Hello, how are you today? Hello, how are you today? Hello, how are you today? Right? And so maybe thinking about what do we want the phrasing on this to be. I think that's something, again, it's kind of sophisticated to be talking about with a 10-year-old, but you're playing the instrument so beautifully that I feel like you're able to think about these kind of things, So let's try it once more and see if you can make it feel yum da dee da yum ba da dum dum dee da dee. So the ends of the phrases kind of go away more so than go forward. Dee da dee da. Nice. Now you can still sustain the tone. It's just I'm not, right? Right, good. So I think the things, you're doing wonderfully, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed performing, because I think that's great. That's really a treasure. That's so wonderful. Kind of brings back memories. All of my kids play string instruments. We kind of said, till you're 18, you're all going to have to play, and then by that point they're kind of hooked, and they want to keep playing. So my oldest is a professional violinist in New York City. My younger daughter is a second-year master's student in cello at the Juilliard School in New York, and my son's also in New York now too. He plays viola, but he's actually not majoring in it. He wants to do international relations. But I think it's just such a great thing, because whether you decide to major in music or you decide to be a doctor or an astronaut or the first woman president, there's got to be one someday, right? That the violin is something that you're always going to have with you for fun. If you're feeling sad, you have a place to go express that on your instrument, don't you? Some of your friends may not have the same outlet for their feelings, so I think that's great. You and your teacher are doing a great job. You all are so lucky to be in this town. I mean, college towns are great, aren't they? Because there's just so many enrichment activities for kids. You know, you've got great teachers here. You've got great concerts to go to. You actually have probably 3 or 4 of the best violin makers in the world live in Ann Arbor, Michigan right now. It's really quite a cultural oasis, so you're very fortunate. So up and out, and maybe start thinking in terms of musical sentences a little bit more, because you're playing so very beautifully. Thanks for playing for me.